everyone, and welcome to my very crazy January book haul. If you've been following me for a while, you would know that I don't really do many book hauls on this channel. I've decided to make hauls at the end of every month in which I will include the books that I've purchased during that month and also the books I checked out from the library. During January, I bought about 30 books, and price-wise they all add up to about under $100. Not by much. The first ones I'm going to show you are the books that I bought either from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, so I bought them in new condition, and they're also the ones that I paid most money for, obviously. And I started off with buying The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, which I've actually read in January, which is a great accomplishment, buying a book and reading in the same month. This is a psychological thriller, and this just came out last year. And since I really like psychological thrillers, I just couldn't wait to find it in a sale like a year from now. And I ordered it from Amazon. It was a good thriller. I talk about it in my readathons wrap up for the month, so I'm gonna leave that link down below. Next up, I also bought The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu and translated by Ken Liu. I actually bought this more for my husband than for me because he's more of the sci-fi fantasy fan. But my husband's also telling me that this has a lot of Chinese cultural aspects in it, so I'm probably going to be reading this once he's done with it. Also, this is the first of a sci-fi trilogy, and the author of this book is apparently a really well-established sci-fi author in China, but this is his first book translated into English. Next up, I bought the book that I just could not help myself. Like, I need to read this as soon as I can. That is You by Caroline Kepnes. I've heard so many people go crazy about this book, and it just sounds like a book that I'm gonna just really like. This is another psychological thriller, and it is told through the perspective as a stalker who works in a bookstore and becomes severely obsessed with a girl who buys something one time there. I think this is gonna stay with me for a long time after I read it, and I know the sequel is coming out this month, so I'm really looking forward to reading it and getting the sequel as well, which will probably be in my February haul. The last book that I bought new, I found in the Barnes & Noble bargain section, and it was just a really beautiful edition. It was the first time I saw this edition of Life of Pi by Yann Martel. I haven't read this one. I really wanted to read it, and this is a really gorgeous, like, leather-bound, silver page, really small edition, and the inside is so gorgeous, and I just couldn't stop myself. This was like $5, and I don't really like any of the covers for the other editions, like the movie covers, so this was really cute. Look at the tiger. I was really proud of having purchased so few books during the month until I found out about a library sale that was happening Saturday, like last Saturday. And I went there, and obviously I walked out with many books. I've divided them in pretty much 3 piles. A pile of books that I purchased because I really wanted to buy for a long time, because I've known about them for a long time. Then I have a pile of books that I've heard people on BookTube mostly or on Goodreads talk about them and how good they are, and I've been wanting to check them out for that reason. And then I have a pile of books that I have absolutely no idea what they're about. They just either looked interesting, sounded interesting, or I've just heard of the author pretty much. So I'm gonna start with the first pile of books that I wanted to buy for a long time. The first one is Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. The light sucks. Okay. I've seen a movie adaptation of this. I know this is set in a high school, and it has to do with like rape culture and the effect it has on young women. Next up, I have When the Emperor Was Divine by Julie Otsuka. This is a Japanese-American novelist, I believe, and I've seen this one in Romania, like the Romanian translation of it, and I've been wanting to buy it for a long time, so when I found it in English in like really crisp condition, I just couldn't help myself. Next up, Go Ask Alice by an anonymous writer. It says A Real Diary. I know it's about drug addiction and a young girl who gets into drugs, but that's pretty much all I know of it. I just heard about it from a friend of mine. Next up, I bought The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. Milan Kundera is a Czech author, but according to Wikipedia, he was exiled in France and got French citizenship and he likes to be referred to as a French author and likes his work to be considered French literature. I don't know much about this book. I've read about it in another book. I read about it in The Bastard of Istanbul by Elif Shafak, which I really loved. And one of the characters there was really obsessed with Kundera and his style, so I'm really curious to check it out. The next book I bought is a huge book. It's The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I'm not exactly sure what this book is about, but I know that when I was in England, or I just left England after college, it had become a huge thing. It was turned into a mini-series, and I heard from my aunt that this book is really amazing. So I've been eyeing it for a long time. And because it's so big, it's generally very expensive. Like the price on this one says like $25. So I'm really happy to have bought this for $1. Next book, I am so excited to have found it. It's a really beat up copy of it. And I actually thought it was out of print when I bought it, but then I realized it wasn't out of print, but I'm still super excited. It is The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. This book is a banned book. It was so controversial. The author of this book had death threats because of this. I think he actually survived a few failed assassination attempts. I'm not exactly sure what this book is about, but just the idea that it was so controversial has made me want to read it for a long time. The last two books are two Stephen King first editions. The first one is Desperation, and the second one is 4 Past Midnight. 4 Past Midnight is a collection of novellas, 4 novellas, and Desperation is a novel. And in case you don't know, I've been kind of trying to collect the Stephen King first editions. I have like 5 of them here. I just like really love them. They're really not practical books. I mean, I really don't like hardcovers all that much. It's so hard to read them and hold them, but they just look so cool and I really love the dust jackets of them. Moving on to the second pile of books I've heard about from BookTube, I picked out The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. I just started reading The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and I'm really liking it so far. It's really interesting. I really like the writing style. I think this is a later novel of hers, like The Handmaid's Tale is an older novel. This is the more recent one. Next up, I picked up 2 Toni Morrison books. I bought Sula by Toni Morrison, and then I also got Beloved by Toni Morrison. And I'm just really excited to read her because I've heard so many wonderful things. When I talked about my 12 books I want to read this year and I mentioned The Bluest Eye, I got quite a few reactions saying how Toni Morrison is really amazing, and I'm really excited to have found 2 more of her books. Another book that I've heard mentioned so many times by a bunch of booktubers is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I think this is a Spanish author. I'm not sure what this is about. I did hear someone at the fair talking to his teenage daughter, recommending her this book, saying that it has a little bit of everything, a little bit of history, a little bit of romance, a little bit of books about books. So I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good to me, so I'll just take it. Next up, I got Dinner at the Homesick Restaurant by Anne Tyler. I've heard this one mentioned a while ago by Conrad from Just a Dust Jacket. I think this is more of like a character study in a dysfunctional family. Next, I got my first Dean Koontz book. This one I've heard mentioned over at Katie's from Chapter Stacks in her top horror novels, and it is Intensity. Apparently this is about a serial killer, and I don't need to say more than that, do I? Next one is Divine Secrets of the Yahya Sisterhood by Rebecca Wells. I really don't know anything about this book. I read the back and it says it's about a relationship between a mother and her daughter. That's really enough to grab my attention. But I do think I've heard this one mentioned a couple of times also. I'm not sure by who though. The next book I think I heard mentioned when I was doing the Continent Readathon last year. And I think people put this on their TBR when they were doing Africa. And this is The #1 Ladies Detective Agency by Alexandra McCall Smith. And the next 2 books are by the same author. One of them I bought because I've heard mentioned a lot of times on BookTube, and the other one I bought because it was the same author, and that is Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And I also picked up Mules and Men by her as well. I'm planning on reading Their Eyes Are Watching God during February for Black History Month. Not sure I will get to this one, but I've heard so many things about this, and it's really short, so I'm probably gonna get through to it in February. At least I'm planning to. And now on to the books that I have absolutely no clue what they are about. I'm starting with the one that I have no idea how to even pronounce the author's name. This is The Point of Return by Siddhartha Deb. This is apparently set in northern India, and it looks at the relationship between a father and his son and how it progresses during time and how it is affected by the political movements. And it also said something like this is a part of India that not many books are set in. So I'm really excited for this. Another book that I have no idea what it's about is Little Bee by Chris Cleave. Another book is The Humbling by Philip Roth. It's about an actor who has reached his 60s and has pretty much gone out of the spotlight and the kind of hard time he's having to deal with that. Next, I picked up a non-fiction book. It's called Wasted, a memoir of anorexia and bulimia by Maria Hornbacher. Eating disorders are interesting. I studied them in my undergrad while doing psychology, and I was actually quite interested in the eating disorders then. Then I picked up another psychological thriller. It's called Asylum by Patrick McGrath, and this has a really cool cover. That's pretty much all I know. I started reading the back. I saw that it was psychological thriller. I didn't read more into it. I like to read my psychological thrillers without knowing anything about them. Another one that sounded really good was Wild Ginger by An Chi Min. This is about a young girl growing up during the Cultural Revolution in China and under the Maoist system. Another psychological thriller that just looked interesting was Promise Not to Tell by Jennifer McMahon. This looks like it has a really crazy child in it, so crazy children are always fun to read about. And the last book I bought was a total cover buy, and it is such an interesting cover. I love these covers. It's called Happenstance. 2 novels in one about a marriage in transition. Half of it is told through the male perspective, and then half of it is told through the female perspective. And this looks really interesting. That's pretty much all the books that I bought. Now onto a very small library haul. From the library I only got 5 books. 2 of them are graphic novels. The first one that I got from the library was From Hell by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. This is a graphic novel, a fictionalized account of Jack the Ripper and the Jack the Ripper investigation. And I read about half of this last year. I took it from the library, but I never finished it. And this year I started it over. I just read the prologue because I wanted to read the appendix as I read each chapter, because the appendix explains how much of it is fictionalized and how much is based on actual research. It also has a lot of extra information and makes you understand the storyline a little better, so I want to do that, and I'm taking my time with this one. The second graphic novel that I got is Lena Finkel's Magic Barrel by Anna Ulinik. And I think this follows a woman who gets divorced in her 50s, and she shares her whole life in terms of relationship and sex. And next up I picked up 3 novels. The first one is one that is on my 12 novels to read this year list, and that is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I want to read this one in February for the Black History Month. Next up I got a book that I'm planning to buddy read with Yaya. Yaya has a really wonderful channel here on YouTube, but she hasn't posted in a while. I hope she will start making videos again. And we're going to be reading Harbor by John Ajvide Lindqvist. This is a Swedish author who wrote Let the Right One In, which I read last year and really loved. Last year I've also read Little Star by him, which I haven't mentioned at all on this channel because I read it in the time when I wasn't really making videos towards the end of the year. That one was not as good as Let the Right One In my opinion, but it was still really engaging and I really enjoyed it. This one I have literally no idea what it's about. I just picked it up because it's written by him and I want to read all his books. The last one is actually a first book in a Norwegian thriller series, which is called Lethal Investments The series is called the Oslo Detective Series. That's pretty much everything that I've got this month. I also ordered a book from the Book Depository at the beginning of January, which has not yet made its way into my mailbox for some reason, even though it's been like 3 weeks. But hopefully I'm gonna get it soon, and I'm gonna show it to you guys in my February haul, which will be at the end of this month. Let me know if you guys have read these books, what you thought about them. That's pretty much all I have to show you for today. I think this video has been long enough. So I'm gonna see you soon with another video. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.